They put a 23-year-old's Instagram profile picture up on a conference room TV and started debating whether she should keep her job. She wasn't even in the room. I sat there watching HR click through some kids' vacation photos like it was a courtroom exhibit, and all I could think was, nobody in this room has any idea what's about to happen to the woman 2 seats down from me. I'm an assistant manager now. New title, still figuring out what it actually means. And apparently what it means, at least on this particular Tuesday, is sitting in a meeting where a room full of senior people are dissecting a picture of a new hire at a party, wearing something HR called inappropriate, making what they described as a seductive face. That was it. That was the offense. A photo. Off the clock. On her own account. I'd been at the company long enough to know most of the people in that room, but I want to focus on one of them specifically because she matters more to this story than anyone else in it. Susan. Susan and I used to get along fine. When I first started, she seemed like one of the friendlier faces around, the kind of person who shows you where the good coffee machine is and warns you about which manager to avoid on a bad day. At some point, I don't even remember who sent the request, we ended up following each other on Instagram. Didn't think twice about it. Somewhere between then and now, that friendliness wore off. Susan liked to remind people, often unprompted, that she'd been at the company for years. She wasn't shy about the fact that she didn't think much of the younger staff. Difficult in meetings. Sharp with new hires. The kind of coworker you learn to work around rather than with. None of that is illegal. None of that gets you fired. People are allowed to be unpleasant. But sitting in that meeting, watching HR zoom in on a stranger's Instagram photo like it was evidence in a trial, I thought about Susan's account. And I thought about what was on it. So when it was my turn to speak, I didn't hold back. I said the obvious thing first. Our policy doesn't say anything about how employees are allowed to dress in their personal social media. There's no clause about party photos. No rule against a seductive face at a private event with your friends. This girl was new. She was doing her job fine. And putting her Instagram on a boardroom television felt less like an HR concern and more like public humiliation. That got a few nods. Not everyone's, but enough. Then I went further. I told them that if we were going to start treating personal Instagram accounts as fair game for HR review, then maybe we shouldn't stop at the new girl. Maybe we should take a look at Susan's account too. Someone who'd been here for years. Someone who was, by her own repeated reminder, a company veteran. I said it knowing exactly what would happen if they actually looked, because I already knew what was on there. I want to be clear about something, because it matters for what happens next. I lean conservative. I voted conservative. This isn't some story about political sides. This is about what was actually sitting on Susan's profile, reposted for anyone following her to see. Post after post about there being too many Indians in the country. Reposts drifting into genuinely extreme territory, the kind of content that isn't really about policy anymore. It's just contempt dressed up as opinion. We work in Canada. Our company is about as diverse as a workplace gets. And here was someone with hiring influence, someone training new staff, someone representing the company at every shift, openly amplifying the idea that people who look like half our coworkers don't belong here. I hadn't said anything about it before that meeting. Honestly, I probably would have kept scrolling past it forever if HR hadn't decided a party photo was worth a boardroom discussion. But once they'd set that standard, I wasn't going to let it apply to one person and not the other. So they looked, and for a moment, the room went quiet in a completely different way than it had a few minutes earlier. Here's where it gets complicated, though, because HR wasn't neutral in this. The HR rep running that meeting was an older woman herself, and not exactly known for being easy to work with. She was also, and this is the part that matters, close friends with Susan. Outside of work close. The kind of friendship where you don't casually forget whose side you're on. So when Susan's repost came up on that same screen, I watched her face change in real time. Not shock exactly. More like someone recalculating. She didn't defend the content. She didn't say Susan's posts were fine. What she did instead was smaller and somehow worse. She tried to steer the conversation back toward the new hire, back toward the party photo, like Susan's account was a detour rather than the point. That's when the senior manager in the room did something I did not expect. He pulled out his phone, opened his own Facebook, turned the screen around so the whole table could see it, a photo of himself at the beach with his family, shirt off, sunburnt, completely unremarkable, the kind of photo half the people in that room probably had somewhere on their own profile. He looked at HR and said, more or less, "Here, you can have this chat with me too." It wasn't dramatic. He didn't raise his voice, but it landed exactly the way it was supposed to. Because the point wasn't that his beach photo was scandalous. The point was that it wasn't, and neither was the new girls, and everyone in that room knew it. The only profile in that meeting that actually deserved scrutiny was the one HR was trying to talk around. He sided with me. Not loudly, not with some big speech, just by refusing to let the conversation get redirected away from what actually mattered. So here's where things stand now. The new hire, the one whose photo started all of this, is still employed. Nobody's brought it up since. I doubt anyone even remembers what she was wearing at that party by this point. Susan's reposts are officially under review, which sounds like accountability, until you learn who's actually doing the reviewing. Her friend, the same HR rep who ran that meeting, the same woman who tried to change the subject the second Susan's name came up on screen. So now I get to sit back and watch two women who've had each other's backs for years decide, together, how seriously to take a stack of racist reposts that one of them made and the other one is supposed to investigate. I already know how invested I am in that outcome. Not very. I didn't do this to win some office power struggle, and I didn't do it because I had some grand plan about exposing Susan. I did it because if you're going to drag a 23-year-old's party photo onto a television screen and call it a professional concern, you don't get to look away from the coworker openly saying an entire ethnic group doesn't belong in this country. You don't get to pick which double standard is convenient. They wanted a social media audit. They got one. They just didn't expect it to end up in their own hands.